Can you see if you can?
Do you want to share?
Oh yes, I do. I thought you got one. I knew that I had extras, so yes. So my 2 are for Ela and for not Kat, but well, she's gonna kill me. Why can't I? Oh, Lisa, yeah. Are you gonna see her?
No,
like
because
soon?
we don't meet together anymore.
I'll see a lot today though.
Yeah. You can give that to
We have
her.
class together.
Anybody gonna see Elisa
After this?
anytime soon?
In an hour. Nope, in 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. My student teaching seminar overlaps with this.
So and she's in the same. Yeah.
Student teaching seminar?
But then she's like. Ala gets out of student teaching, so I think she just like come.
Yeah,
you know, she
she's
can't
so
quite.
late.
So I got this.
Yes, I was gonna tell you that I put that there and then I forgot to tell you.
Okay.
But
Not that you
you
can't
found it. So.
I did. I
I
found
figured
it.
you would.
It's like, oh look, there it is.
Yeah, because I
There's a
did it
paper.
again. So.
Okay.
Well, my
Sounds good.
seminar is
It's
2
happening
people.
this time.
It's happening.
Are you
serious?
Yeah, because we both requested, we were the only 2 we requested to go back to our first placement. And since we were the only 2 who requested it, they just like set up a small, like, we have 1 supervisor, it's just the 2 of us. It's very relaxed.
For 3 people.
I hate that. Where are you?
YAI Roosevelt.
Okay.
I hate
So first, I want to get an update on everyone. I haven't seen you guys in a month, and so I'm wondering. I know about most, like especially people who are having a little bit of trouble and whatever, but obviously it would be great to get everybody's update. So let me just get out my notebook so I can, or my notes pages so I can track where everyone is. Okay, so why don't we start with Christine?
Sure. Okay. So.
Well, you didn't have to collect data. That's why it's easiest to start with you.
Right. That's true. Yeah. So we already did our analysis of the data that was already collected, and so that part's pretty much done. I just have to kind of, and I wrote about it too, and I gave it to
Okay.
to my advisor, and so we talked about it and discussed where we should go from there. And then he also read my lit review and told me that I need to add so much more to it. So that's basically what I've been doing, is adding a lot of research. And he said so much research, so much so that you keep saying the same things over and over. And so now I think I've gotten to that point, and I pretty much finished it last week. But now I'm in the midst of working on the analysis of the methodology, I guess, the discussion of
The writing up of the method
right,
section?
Right,
Okay.
that's where I'm about to start.
Okay.
So, yeah. I think I'm making pretty good progress.
All right. That sounds like it. Okay. Yes, me lady.
Okay. So I'll start with what I did this month. My advisor was a little sick for the first couple weeks of February, so I was unable to meet with her and start the questionnaire process. But I did it. But we were able to meet recently, within I don't know what time, 2.5 weeks ago, and I have a questionnaire completed, written up. There was minor changes to be made, but nothing serious. I wrote the letter that goes with it. That's just to say who I am, what I'm doing.
The cover letter.
And the cover letter. And then we're going to send it out. The feedback I got on my lit review was great from both you and Maris, and the project proposal. The only things I got were to just tighten up the language, to go through it and tighten up the language in the lit review, which I will start doing tonight. It's actually my plan to start to try and compile the rough draft, the bare bones of the rough draft tonight, just to try and see where I need, where my language is the weakest, and to really focus on that. I have good research. I've written that stuff up, and I'm just waiting to send out the questionnaire.
So when are you planning on sending it out?
As soon as Maris okays it, and Frank gives us a school to send it to.
Okay. And you're sending it to one school?
Well, as many schools as Frank says has what we need.
Okay.
So we're trying to get the NYU schools, and then we'll send it out, and then start, writing, rewriting.
Right.
Our project proposal is essentially our paper, right?
Yeah. It's basically the outline for it. Okay. I mean, it's a proposal is like the first 3 chapters kind of a dissertation or something, or a thesis. It's so you guys are not quite doing full chapters, but it's like the first 3 sections. It's the intro, the lit review, the methods, and then you add your results, your analysis, your results. And then you always go back because your intro will be more interesting once you have findings, because then you can sort of tie it into something and make it really interesting, or whatever. So those things it's an iterative process, but essentially what you have in the proposal is like the skeleton, if not skeleton with a little muscle on it, if not the skin, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The skin is sort of like the final packaging,
over.
but yeah. Okay. And so she currently has so she looked at it. You said there were a couple of cosmetic things.
Yeah.
You made those changes. You sent it back to her.
With the
now
cover
she
letter.
just needs to give you the final.
Okay. And we're gonna figure out like where to
The
send
schools.
to
Okay.
send it to.
All right. Do you have any sense of timeline for?
I'm hoping as soon as possible, but I have not been able to get a definitive timeline. Marish when I met with her last week, she just said we were on time and not panic.
Okay. And what's the target sample size again?
10 to 20.
Okay.
Not big, not terribly
Okay.
large.
All right. Okay. How about you, Brittany?
Things are going well. I just finished collecting all my data. I worked with 2 students for the past 3 weeks and did 1 intervention a week with them.
Great.
So I'm pretty much just trying to figure out how to analyze my data and like represent it in a graph and see what my results actually are. So I think I'm just trying to work on putting together like the methods, procedure, just getting everything laid out
Great.
in my paper, and then I guess analyzing it.
Okay. Are you getting help from Joan for analysis? Like
I'm going
how
to talk with her after this
Okay.
today, so.
All right.
And then I actually had a question for you.
Mhm.
Since I'm using that child behavior checklist to score the students, am I able to cite that in my works cited as
Yeah.
one of my references?
Yes.
I should,
You
right?
should.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so as I was just complaining about, I had to change everything. I wasn't complaining about that. I was complaining because I'm scared. Okay, so I changed everything. I just finished finding all the new resources.
Okay.
So I found different ways to measure the things that I need to measure. I found all the articles that I need. The question was changed. I listed all the other things that I need to get done. I have an appointment with Randy today because I have to make a questionnaire for the students, and it's going to be like a 1-page simple questionnaire. And I have a lot of the questions already done. I just want him to go over it. And I found different ways to measure the answers that I do get. And I have to briefly interview the teachers. So I already have those questions. I just want to go over it with him.
Okay.
So hopefully I will collect all the data.
And you're going to be doing
during
observation, right?
Spring break, yeah.
Are you-
It's basically observing, and then right after the class, like the teacher will teach the class. I'll call them the teacher for the day. Once you finish teaching the class, I'll give them the questionnaire, and I tell the teacher to break the class.
Okay.
And that basically happens for 1 to 2 days for each of the 2 teachers, and that's it. And then we just have to analyze that.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm on good track now.
Yeah. And are you doing for the observation a structured observation or unstructured?
What do you mean?
So a structured observation would be that you're sort of looking for specific things, and you would probably have a coding scheme. Or unstructured is where it's more like anecdotal, where you're just writing everything down.
It's a little bit of both, actually. So there's one of the measures was saying to look for specific things to measure student engagement. So I think I'm going to be tallying those while also writing.
Yeah.
Exactly
So that's
what
semi-structured, or basically it's so you're using a scheme,
Yeah.
but then you're also taking open notes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Figure that stuff out.
And when are you planning on starting?
The observations should be during spring break.
That's right. I knew you said something. Okay.
Yeah, so I should be finished collecting all that stuff during spring break.
During the NYU spring break.
Yes. Worst case would be during the other spring break, but that's a week right after, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay. All right. Well, and they'd be out anyway, right?
Oh, yeah. It's going to
So
be
it has to be during
spring
ours.
break, Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
I already, I contacted the teachers in the school, so everything's in progress.
Okay.
It's a lot better now.
All right. So, because that friend of yours found the teachers.
Yeah.
All right. So your classrooms have already been identified. The teachers, everybody's in agreement.
Well, semi-agreement. We're working out the last kinks.
Okay.
It wouldn't be me if everything was a smooth process. It's true. Come on.
Don't put yourself
that.
down.
I know exactly.
It's fine.
Stop. Okay, Teresa.
Okay, so I wanted to collect all my data by March 5th,
Right.
but so I'm trying to get like 20 participants to take my survey, and participants like really selective, like they have to, like there's so many, they have to be.
There are a
like,
lot of criteria.
Right, a lot
Yeah.
of criteria. So it's kind of, I've been having a hard time trying to get people to take the survey. So far I have 10 out of 20.
That's really
Awesome.
good.
I think it's
Yeah.
good.
It's better than 0.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I asked, like, my professor sent out an email to my classmates and Facebook, and posted on Facebook, group pages, NYU, like, cultural group pages.
Okay, good.
And sent out email, and sent an email to Steinhardt undergraduate student government yesterday. So, I don't know, I'm giving some, like, couple more days, or about a week, trying to gather all my data. So
Have you thought about? Facebook might answer this question. You're not only. It doesn't have to be NYU students.
no, I mean at first it was I wanted
I know.
it to, yeah, but
At
I
first,
changed
but,
it.
mhm.
Yeah, so my friend who lives in Pittsburgh, she took it too. So yeah, I mean I have to. I plan on doing an interview. So in that case, I'll have to like contact
Right.
her like via technology.
Yeah.
So.
You can Skype.
Yeah.
Skype interviews are fine. I've done it. And I've done phone interviews with people internationally, so it's not a big deal. So how about, would everybody here be willing to post on your email and like email your friends her project
I know.
description?
I'm in student government, and we were like talking about it. We're like not allowed to send that stuff to
Oh,
people.
okay.
But we do have a bulletin board on the 3rd floor of class. So if you want to like make a flyer and
flyer.
stuff, you can like post it there.
But individual friends can contact their friends,
Yeah,
right? And they
exactly,
can
yeah.
put it on their
Individuals can
Facebook
do it.
and yeah. Okay.
What's the criteria for the?
Well, it's like, okay, undergraduate student, 18 to 22 years old, I believe, and should have either immigrant or
grew up
Grew
in a
up in-
home
English
where
speaking country.
Yeah, forward it to me because there are at least 4 people in my cohort
Oh,
who
really?
are immigrant, who are either international students.
Mhm.
Do they need to have grown up in America?
Well, yeah, between kindergarten and 3rd grade-ish.
That's when they should have.
That's when they should have
Ooh.
come. Yeah. So she's looking at like it's a
Specific.
specific, right?
Oh, kindergarten, 3rd grade,
Mm-hmm.
moved here.
Yes.
Or moved here, or
Okay, I think I have at least
formal
I
education.
I got one.
Yeah.
I got one.
Okay, one is
So
better.
just send them your recruitment letter
Okay.
and the link,
Okay.
and you guys just put it on your Facebook pages, send it out to friends, whoever you can think of, and I think you'll be fine.
Just
Um,
like
it-
blast it out to the class through NYU class. Is the
Oh
roster
yeah.
open?
The what?
Did you open the roster?
I think so.
Some classes don't have an I guess it might not be a default setting to open the roster.
Oh, like as in you guys can't see each other,
Right.
or something. Oh, so it's
It
like
might
a
not be a-
protection thing.
I guess so. If you open the roster, then she can just blast it to us, and we can.
I mean,
send
she
it
should
forward.
be able to. I think you should be able to like go to the messages thing and just like send an email to all students. All students.
Yeah,
But
if you go on your NYU email, if you just type her name,
You'll come right up.
Yeah, I mean that's also true.
yeah, that's true. But if you did it through classes, it would also be either way. Then she could make it more generic. If you did it on classes, you could actually post. You wouldn't have to say like, "Dear Brittany, can you send this to your friends?" You could literally just write the letter, and then she could copy and paste it or something like that or whatever. So everybody could. Anyway, that would be very helpful. Yeah.
I'm certain if we had such specific qualifications that we would like other people to offer to blast emails
Yeah,
for us.
exactly. Totally.
I was also told I can't. Mara said that I really shouldn't do like a SurveyMonkey survey, but rather on paper because we didn't have IRB.
Oh, well, SurveyMonkey is,
Or like NYU Qualtrics.
or you can use Qualtrics. So those are private. They're like, it's a protected account. So it would be one thing if and maybe she's concerned because if you don't have like a paid SurveyMonkey account, I don't know if those data are public. But if you were to do it through Qualtrics, it would be password protected with your NYU password, so nobody's going to have access
I
to
used
it.
Qualtrics for mine. It was
Yeah.
fine. The only thing was that it didn't notify me when somebody filled out a survey, so I had to like constantly check it.
Yeah, I think that's a setting somewhere. You just have to find a dig for it. But I think it is a setting that you can ask it to notify you when people. Cause actually, I know that it is because when I was having all those problems, and I was like on the phone with the Qualtrics person, he was like, you know, do this setting, and then I would see, and then we could tell whether it had been done correctly or not. So yeah, it's a setting on the right hand side on the top or something. Anyway, yeah.
I have a question. This is a little off topic, but if we're using the measures and the other interventions as resources, do we need 10 articles and then add those?
Yes.
Just to clarify.
Yes, that does not count toward your, minimum.
I
mean, really, you have that covered. Like,
No,
I mean,
I have 13.
Yeah.
But I was like, should I take out like?
Yeah,
every article?
no. You need to have, like,
10, right?
evidence and or whatever. You need to be able to build the case, and so however many articles you need, you might need 30 to build the case, but which is what you're finding out is like, Michael's saying you need more, right? So it just depends on where you are.
It's kind of related to that. Is there a certain amount of times we need to include or quote an article
Oh
in
no.
order to count it on our works cited? Like
Oh,
if I
no.
mention it once, is that okay?
Yeah.
All right.
And remember, like I was saying last time, or maybe just when I met with people one-on-one, like direct quotes,
All right.
you want to minimize those as much as possible, right? Unless the person has written something that's like, Shakespearean. There's just not really a necessity to quote directly. You can just paraphrase. Yeah. Stephanie?
So I revised my research question, and then did another lit review, and I've been through it with Sarah, and she gave me some good feedback, and I have identified. I'm now interviewing 2 teachers twice, and so I know who those teachers are, and we have tentatively scheduled the interviews for the end of this week, beginning of next week. I'm just trying to do it in a as not annoying of a way as possible, because I feel bad asking for their time because they're very busy and stuff. So I'm just trying to be very nice, but also actually schedule it.
Yeah. Of course. I mean, we're always grateful for people's time.
But I should be done by hopefully next Wednesday, if not next Friday.
Okay. So by next Friday. Because don't forget, guys, that so tomorrow we're supposed to get this big snow, right?
Oh,
Random things
I heard 3 inches.
happen. Yeah, it's varying.
weather advisor,
It's either going to be a storm.
Or nothing.
Yeah, it's either going to be this major storm or it's going to be a lot of hoopla for nothing, as always. It's the weather, and I just feel sorry for meteorologists because they just don't know. I mean, they have an idea, but they really don't know. But
it's so nice out today.
Yeah, exactly. It's this gorgeous day, and then everybody's like, "Wait, what? We're gonna have a big storm? Probably not." But then, if you don't, then you get Hurricane Sandy. If you don't prepare, then so you have to be prepared for all the possibilities.
I heard it was night.
Sorry.
No, sorry. We have class all night tomorrow.
Oh my. Oh well, I mean,
We also, but we have I don't know if you know this, but the Cochrane room it is actually the hottest room.
It's
in
the hottest
entire
room.
building.
They're pumping heat. Meanwhile, people on the second floor don't have any heat, but but Cochrane is really hot. But the other people, on those offices, they didn't have heat yesterday, so then they were all huddling in Cochrane because that room is evidently
it is disgusting.
the pit of I don't even understand.
We're there from 3:30 till 7:30. It is unbelievably warm in there.
Yeah. It's delightful. So, the topic for today is evaluating your research project and ensuring the quality and trustworthiness of your project analyses and conclusion. Now, this chapter that unfortunately you're getting after the fact rather than before the fact.
Oh wait.
Yeah, you're keeping that for a lot.
Okay.
So, no, it's fine. This chapter is really helpful because well, this whole book, I'm totally getting it for next year, I'm very excited, is very, very helpful because it just breaks things down into really simple steps. And you'll see on the very, first, second page or whatever, it says that it shows you this table. It's the navigator for the chapter, and it says you are here, reflection and writing, evaluating research, ethics, writing and using research. Now, obviously, many people are still in the second two, not so much the second two boxes, maybe working with data, gathering data, analyzing data, doing their research. So some people are still in the box above. So why did I want to do this sort of ahead of the curve? Because I always want us to be one step ahead and be thinking ahead about the different things that we're going to be aware of. So we know that next week we are going to be doing a data analysis workshop where you're bringing your data to class and you're going to actually work on your data. Since you've already done that part with Michael, I think we'll just have you be just a critical friend. You'll still be part of the workshop and giving feedback and helping everyone, but you don't have to bring your data because you're already done. Yeah. And the analyses that you'd be doing aren't ones that we would know anyway, because you guys are doing high level statistics and so
what are we gonna, it seems like a bunch of us are not going to have our data by next week. Or at least I know I'm not.
Yeah. Oh, right. Ew. Yeah.
Is there any way to
So maybe we could switch sessions, March 12th and March 26th, and not have class next week and just do meeting with advisors.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah.
Because if we're going to make a schedule change, I think we all need to
Yeah.
See.
That would probably make sense.
I would love to switch the 26th and the 12th. That would. No, I wouldn't. I'm not going to be here on the 26th.
Okay.
I don't remember. I'm probably not.
So what are you saying? Are we still
Well, I'm saying if nobody's going to have their data, then maybe it doesn't make sense to me here. Although, what I could do is I could bring you guys fake data. Just to go through the process of what it would look like to work with the data that you have. So, you have surveys of preset questions, yes?
Yes, I have it. I have it. If you want after class, I have it with me.
Okay. You have.
I have my data, so can I bring in my actual?
You can bring in your actual data. You won't have data yet, but you're going to have observational data. Interview questionnaire. You're going to have surveys. You're going to have interviews. Okay.
I can bring what I have, if it's worth.
I don't even.
You don't think it's worth it?
You can facilitate our discussion and you can be
You're
our
gonna
zone
lead
of, you are our zone of proximal development.
Yeah,
you are where we're going.
Exactly.
Pressure.
You know what? Let's keep it as is. And so what I'll do is I will just take you through what I when I'm teaching a research methods class and people are not collecting data, I still show sort of how you would go about doing thematic analysis, and not to mention the chapter is very detailed. Chapter 6, the one for next week, which hopefully I won't have to do this illegal activity again. But I will post it on Blackboard as soon as possible. So you guys should definitely come having read it. Okay? And then I'll bring some interview text, I'll bring some observational records, I will bring some examples of surveys, and you guys can sort of have a hands-on experience, because it is important to practice. So if you can't practice on your own data, having your own data would be ideal, but if you can't do it on your own data, at least having a sense of what is coming would be helpful. But anyway, so we're not doing that till next week, but it's still important, I think, to start to think about how to make sure that that what you're doing is of good quality, and that's what the topic of this chapter is. So it's let's just walk through it, right? So it goes over in quantitative research, there are different criteria for assessing research. Reliability is there are different kinds of reliability as it breaks it down. I'm not going to go over them, but basically the overall point is that your data are replicable. You can trust that they're true because you could do them many times and you could find similar findings. and you want to be sure that your measurement is precise. So it's the way that you're measuring your, let's say you, Talia is measuring the kinds of methods that people are using to do language acquisition. She's looking at how the different kinds of approaches that teachers use. So if she were to do a survey of people's experiences when they were going to school, that would not be reliable. That would not be a reliable way to accurately capture what people are doing in their classrooms around language acquisition, right? So you want the questions to really be asking for exactly what you want. And so the measure is like, can we trust that this is actually capturing what we want it to capture? Are these questions actually about language acquisition, or are they somehow off base, right? So that's reliability. And then validity is that you actually want to know both whether or not your research design is that the results actually, so I was saying before, I said it backwards. So validity is where you can trust the results. Like you can trust that you measured things properly because of reliability, but then also that they can be analyzed in an unambiguous way. So in other words, that your findings really are your findings, that there aren't like a bunch of alternate explanations. Does that make sense? Okay. And there's internal validity and external validity. So you want to make sure that there aren't like all these other factors playing in, that you can actually trust what it is that you're finding. I'm using the word trust because both in quantitative and qualitative research, the idea of trustworthiness is one that has come up as a way that captures all the things that you want to be concerned about, no matter what kind of method that you're using. Because initially, people always used to use the language of validity and reliability even when they were doing qualitative research. But these qualitative researchers said, it's not the same thing. Quantitative and qualitative are different, and you're looking for different things. So rather than just using the same language, let's use new language. But the whole point is trustworthiness. Like that's the most the thing that we're aiming for is that we really can say that these data are trustworthy. Our findings are trustworthy. Okay. In qualitative research, so that's the section, he talks about this reformulation of the traditional criteria. Like instead of talking about validity and reliability, we want to look at some different things to decide whether or not they are trustworthy. Another thing that is often used as a criterion for the quality, making sure that research is of good quality, is the idea of generalizability. Who's familiar with that concept? Mm-hmm. Can you guys tell us what that is about?
To be able to apply it to more than one situation, that your research can't just work for one classroom in one school, in one district, in one state. You have to be able to apply it to different teachers, different classrooms, different schools, states, districts. It has to be able to move. Sometimes that doesn't always work.
Right.
Because you'll see we're doing a lot of low SES, children at risk, how to stop it, and you'll read about all these different programs in Detroit or in a small town in North Carolina, and they'll try and bring the program to a different city, and it won't work.
Yeah.
So their methods are valid because they're working, but they're not generalizable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. So typically that has to do with your objectives. And most of the time, quantitative research does have an objective of generalizability. So quantitative research relies typically on large samples that are drawn systematically and randomly, which increases the likelihood that it can apply no matter what the setting is. So if the intervention was developed nationally across a variety of settings, rural, urban, low income versus high, whatever, right? If you're trying to go sort of for generalizability of, say, the whole nation, then you would want to make sure that every single person in the nation had an opportunity to participate in the study. But typically we're not looking at that broad, right? We're looking at, say, children living in poverty. But what you'd want to do if you're trying to make it sort of a nationally representative sample, what that term means, nationally representative sample, means that all children fitting a certain category, meeting certain criteria, like all children in families living below the poverty line had an opportunity to be participants in this research. Like, presumably, theoretically, because the sampling was done in such a way that it was really random. It was sort of like whether you used numerical randomization or whether you used whatever method that you used to sort of say like here, here, and here, but every place had an equal chance, then that, in theory, is supposed to make it generalizable because you're not targeting. What most people want to do and try to do is to be a little bit more strategic in their sampling. So they will want to be a little bit more like regional. We're going to sample randomly, but we're going to do it like in the South. We're going to sample randomly, but we're going to do it in urban settings. We're going to so people generally try, depending on the goal of the research, to tailor, especially when it comes to interventions, because you don't want something that is done in one location, to then try to be applied somewhere else. But it happens. Qualitative researchers are less concerned about generalizability, as in, whatever I find, I also would like to be able to make that statement true. I did this study of Dominican adolescents in an urban New York City schools, that I want to be able for that information to apply to kids who are Turkish immigrants in California. Qualitative researchers are less concerned about that, and they're more concerned about representation and theoretical generalization, which is generalizing to ideas more so. Like, what are the concepts that are being drawn out from this research, and do those concepts, like the idea of like identity struggle that might emerge from a study of Dominican immigrants in New York, could that concept sort of hold up with Turkish immigrants in California? It's not so much about like the direct experiences that they can say, these kids had high test scores, they also had high levels of violence in their school, they also had blah, 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 like characteristics, and are those characteristics generalizable, but more about broader experiences. And that's what qualitative research tend to be more interested in, sort of like, how are these bigger ideas or these notions looking in different settings and in different contexts. Okay, so that's the difference. You're still interested in the work that you do. You're still interested in the idea that it's not simply applicable to one setting per se, but whether or not you're trying to like do an intervention or sort of like make changes or at the policy level or whatever, that has to do with the goals and objectives of your research. So each individual research project has different objectives, and that's going to determine part of what goes into the decision about like what methods are we going to use. What's our research question, and what's our goal? What is our aim? Are we trying to sort of like eradicate poverty for all children under 5? That's a very different goal than, what are the experiences of poverty like for children under 5 living in the South? Very different research questions, which would dictate different methods, which would have different implications. Are we good? Everybody's with me? Perfect. All right. And then he goes about this thing about e-research, which is, I think, not even necessarily like, I'm on the page 212. The standards of quality in e-research is not even necessarily the kind of stuff that you guys are doing, like posting online, but for specific, you're just making it available. E-research is literally when your whole your whole population is the internet. Like, you know what I mean? Where you're targeting people who are using the internet. Like, say if you're marketing or something like that, and you're trying to determine whether your product would be interesting or whatever. But here is the checklist that he provides in box 11.1 on page 213 for evaluating a research project. So if you're doing a quantitative study, have the criteria of reliability, validity, and objectivity been checked? In a qualitative study, which criteria or approaches for assessment of quality have been applied? How far have you made the study and the assessment of its quality transparent and explicit in the presentation of the results and of the procedures? In other words, have you identified the limitations of your approach? What did you do with deviant results or negative cases? So if you have, in Christine's case, if you have what's called an outlier, because there's one data point, there's like one person out of 1,000 who's really different than everyone else, or maybe you have 20 of those or whatever. What are you going to do with those? Are you just going to leave them out of the analyses because they really can throw off all your numbers? Or are you going to somehow account for them, like incorporate them, but then compare the analyses with and without them? You know, how do you want to handle that? It's not like there's one straightforward answer. And how have you examined the generalizability of your results? What were the aims in this, right? What were you trying to generalize to? What was the point? And how were they reached? How were your aims reached? So I do want you guys to read this carefully, because I want you to, as you're going forward into analysis and into thinking about writing your results, be prepared to address these issues. And these are issues that you're going to need to be to account for in your write-up, in your final write-up. You know, you're going to want to have a section, typically in the conclusion, on limitations. What were the things about this study that I would want to do better? You know, what were the things that might make my study less, you know, perfect, right? And no single study is perfect, but what would have made my study even better? What would I do next time that was different? Is a way to think about it. So, yeah, that's really all I wanted to say about that.
Mm-hmm. So when we're doing our like final write-up, we should be like mentioning if our assessment was like reliable and valid.
That usually goes into the method section, specifically when you're describing your instrument. So you can say, I mean, in you all's cases where you made up your own survey, you did not have a chance to do like retest reliability, or like checking internal validity, or checking any of those kinds of typical typical kind of things. But you can do things like face validity, which is when you look at something, does it look like it's accurate, which would only be able to be determined by, well, not only, but you know, you'd want an expert, which is your advisor. So you can say, I consulted with my advisor, we constructed this together. You know, we ensured that we were not being biased by including a whole range of whatever. So you describe what you did, right? And that's one of the biggest pieces about designing research and doing research, is that we want to be as descriptive as possible, so that if somebody else wants to replicate, they would be able to carry it out exactly like you did it. So you want to document everything. You want to document the whole process. This is how I designed my study. I chose the questions based on the literature. I, you know, also chose them based on discussions with my advisor. Like, all of that goes into your description of the methods. That's really where the discussion of, like, you know, the sample and whether or not this is a generalizable sample, or whether you were aiming for that, you know. You know.
Is that in the discussion? No,
that's in the methods. Mm-hmm.
Could you give us like? Oh, sorry.
Totally fine.
Go ahead. Could you give us like an example of like a method section? 'Cause I'm like having a hard time, even of all the research that I've read. Like, I'm having a hard time finding like the type of study that I did, and so like how I would write, because my like with the type of qualitative analysis I'm doing, like I'm not sure like where to put like, you know, information about the school or any information about the teachers. Like, I get that like first it's the criteria and then it's like these things, but I don't know, just like the wording is like really confusing for me.
Okay, so you have interviews with observations, or just interviews? And you are looking for, you want to describe all the participants, you want to I mean, I could give you my dissertation methods section, but it's really big.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like what else I could give you that. I think probably what you're looking for, maybe some ethnographic work.
Yeah.
So just look for anthropology, because basically what it sounds like you want to do is you want to be able to talk about the context.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
what was the
that's
school
exactly,
like,
yeah.
right? So setting, you want to have a setting
And
section.
I'm not sure like how to integrate all of those things. Because like right now I feel like it's kind of just a jumble of like the school is this and it's full of these people and like it does this, but like it's not.
Oh, I've got a good paper for you.
Okay.
Prudence Carter. Prudence Carter, I want to say like 2004. And it's in Harvard Ed Review.
Okay.
Wait, is it Prudence? Oh, now I'm like, ooh, maybe. I think it's Prudence's paper that I'm thinking of, or it's whoever it is at Michigan State. I'm going to think about it some more, but it's an Ed Review piece, and she was a teacher and she worked with these students, so she describes the school, she describes the students. In your case, you'd probably want to describe each teacher individually.
Yeah.
I think in her case, she doesn't necessarily do that, like each kid, but you could write like a
Right.
vignette of each teacher, like a profile, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, you could definitely do that.
Cool.
I feel like I'm thinking of, now I'm like questioning what I'm thinking of. Anyway, any other examples that people might want or need?
Yeah, I guess for method section with me also, I'm a little bit like I kind of want to just find like one paper that I can base mine off of, like you were talking about. I haven't really found that.
You haven't
one
found
yet.
like a
Yeah.
model article.
Mhm.
Okay. And you just want to be able to do surveys and writing up of surveys. All right.
What? Yeah, and we like. I guess you created your own. Did you? Like, did you create your own?
I didn't create my own. I
Choose.
used like the SWAN scale for ADHD, but when I gave it to the parents, I just took out the whole like title and everything and just emailed it to them. So I guess it was adapted, but I didn't change any of the questions.
Because like I guess for my methods, I created my own survey. So in methods, I mean like part of my methods section is describing the methods I chose to include in my survey, and then I would have to describe how I came up with my why I picked the particular questions that I picked. Oh, fine, and then just describing how I picked the questions, and then how I picked out my schools. But I can't write like, oh, I gave it to the Office of Clinical Studies and they told me which schools to send it to, because that doesn't sound very professional.
Why don't you say they recommended the school?
These are the schools recommended.
Why NYU?
You can say, you know, in consultation with my department, with my department,
And the Office of Clinical
I
Studies.
selected, right,
Okay.
these
Sound
schools.
professional.
Right.
At this point, if you can't make things sound professional, you just
Then, yeah.
then you hit.
Then we got to start over. Then we got a lot of backtracking to do. Okay, so you haven't found a model article. Who else has not found a model article? One that they're like, this is the one I want my final product to look like.
I'm just kind of winging. I mean, like, this sounds really bad, and I apologize if you feel like a failure. I'm really just kind of winging it, and it's going well. So I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. I'll keep doing what I'm doing until I hit a wall, and then I'll.
But you had some good articles.
I have great articles to model off of.
Right. Like, I think you have a bunch of model articles, actually. I think that's the issue. She really got lucky with her lit review. So I think that's part of it, is that you're just basically doing the ones that you read, and the other ones were very, very strong. Do you have a model article?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay, how about you? Okay, all right. And you...
And I think most of the articles I've been reading are they looking
be
pretty
similar,
much the same?
exactly, yeah.
So.
Both of you guys, had... Oh, yeah, it's you. All right.
It's great when you're able to, like...
Let me just I just want to make a note to pull some model articles for people so that I don't forget.
No. Did you check it? What did
Both of you have, like, a real sugar thing.
pass it on to Teresa?
I stopped liking chocolates and like candy, but this one's really good.
Reese's Sticks? I was like, I couldn't figure out what that was.
So
Does anybody else have an Android phone that's been updating it? My phone has been updating itself all day.
Oh, dear.
No.
You might need to
Check that out.
take the battery out.
Really?
Yeah. If it's been doing it all day...
Not like all day. Like, I say, like, this
Does
one
it
will
need to
take
connect to
10
Wi-Fi?
minutes, or, like, this one takes...
Oh.
Like, it's been software updating for, like...
That takes a long time.
I've had one system update, and I'm on my second software update.
It takes a while.
You have observation too, right, Brittany? You have observation too.
Well, in the child behavior checklist that I'm using, like part of it is a scale that I'm rating, and then the other half is like writing down on-task behavior. So it's still scored, but I'm mentioning the observations.
Okay. CBCL, and what's the other one you used?
Child behavior checklist and the SWAN scale, rating scale for ADHD.
Did you just get an iPhone?
Yes. In January.
I'm sorry, I just realized. Because your emails used to say, thank God for Android, and now they don't.
Yes. Yes. Now they say like sent from my iPhone. Okay.
Oh, so you see, so I was, so part of what I was told and part of what I'm understanding is that I have to describe my sample, and the sample plays a role in how I analyze the data. But at the same time, I struggle with if I do describe them and like I give details on like the class I'm observing, wouldn't it be traceable or something? Because like me and Randy went back and forth and we were saying like, oh, you know, we'll say like, you know, there was this many girls or like this many people that identified with this type of race and everything like that. But if I do that, it makes it easy. You get what I'm saying?
So what you do, if this was something that you were going to publish, you would say the data were collected in a large northeastern city. So you don't say which city it is. In a, you know, public school.
So just be vague, but specific.
Right. You can still say like this many girls, this many boys, but you just wouldn't say like, and it's room 203. You know what I mean? You would just say it was a classroom in a school.
So it still works.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a classroom in a school in the Northeast if you were writing it for publication.
Yeah.
Since you're doing it for this, you don't necessarily need to be like, I obviously know what city it is. You know what I mean? Although you're welcome to write it up that way. I don't care. But you're welcome to say, and you can even say, like in my research, I'll say, you know, I collected the data in Bushwick, Brooklyn. But I'm still not giving enough details that people are going to, and like who's going to go find it unless they're a psycho? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but like, just to clarify, because he was saying that I technically can't because I don't have IRB or whatever, and I'm not getting permission.
But you're
then,
not.
like, yeah.
But it's not being published.
That's
So I
what
think
I'm
just
saying.
make sure to let him know that the reports stop with us.
Okay.
He and I and Barbara, like
Yeah.
we are the ones who are going to read it. We are the ones who are going to grade it, and then we're the ones who are going to dispose of them. We are not gonna like, you know what I mean? And even though you're gonna present it like at the poster session, you're not gonna be saying, don't say anybody's names. Don't give any details, but you can still say how many girls and
Okay.
you know. But if you and you don't have to necessarily even say like it was a school for the deaf. You can say it was just a school, you know, a public school for students with special needs. That's true. That is an accurate statement. It doesn't say which special needs,
Okay.
right? Yeah.
I have a question. Since I got parent permission, I'm working with 2 kids. One of the mothers is really interested in my project, and she was asking if it was going to be published or whatever. And I told her I'm not doing IRB, so it's not going to be published. Is it still okay if I share it with her after I'm done, or is that?
I would just ask
gonna
the
be a
other
problem?
mom. Just ask the other mom if it's okay with her, and tell her, you know, it's anonymous. You're not using anybody's names. But since you are going to be, you know, since this mom has asked, you just wanted to make sure that it was okay with her, that you know, share the report with her. It's not going to be published. Just make sure that, you know, everybody understands that it's not going anywhere. And it's fine to share it with the other parent as long as the other parent
Agrees as well.
is okay. Yeah.
Okay.
What classes in here?
What?
Well, I'm wondering what other
Oh,
classes
they
in
have
here.
math education
Yeah.
for us.
With
The grad
with
students.
Carol. Oh no, that one. Yeah, this one just before us is Ann Bergender for the secondary math ed. But Carol.
I thought it was
Carol.
childhood because I know one of the girls in there we student.
Oh really? Carol
be wrong.
teaches a class in here that I thought that was a childhood
Carol Mulligan?
class. Yeah. I thought that was the
She
childhood
teaches-
class. And
She teaches early childhood.
She also
though.
does us
She
too.
does childhood.
she
Yeah,
does
they do.
childhood too.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh.
That class has everybody in it. I've seen it's like 900 people. They put the tables out in the hallway, in the kitchen, and whatever. It's because they don't have space.
Wait, you guys also have Carol?
We
We
did.
had
We had her last year. the whole
So
year.
hold on. Does anybody have any questions so that we can go off record?